True Story Media.
Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
New year, new me? Cute. But how about new year, new money? With Experian, you can actually take control of your finances. Check your FICO score, find ways to save, and get matched with credit card offers, giving you time to power through those New Year's goals you know you're going to crush. Start the year off right. Download the Experian app. Based on FICO Score 8 model. Offers and approval not guaranteed. Eligibility requirements and terms apply. Subject to credit check, which may impact your credit scores. Offers not available in all states. See Experian.com for details.
Experian.
Dr. Gana Tutera was a well-known OBGYN and pioneer in the field of hormone replacement therapy. His wife, CarolAnn, wasn't just his partner in life, she actually helped him build and run their clinic, helping their patients age more gracefully. But in 2014, everything changed because Dr. Gana fell ill and was admitted to the hospital.
Unfortunately, he was having a lot of stomach pains. Ended up from there, it just tumbled into one thing after another, that he kept going in and out of the hospital. Passed away 6 weeks later, and I was in shock.
CarolAnn was left to run their clinic and manage their finances all on her own. Everything was happening at once, and she needed some help with her money.
A friend of mine here in the publishing industry in Scottsdale introduced me to my financial advisor here in Scottsdale that got me to invest in all the funds that were coming out of the company on the East Coast. He happens to be from Topeka, Kansas. I'm from the Kansas City area. So you think, you've got a nice Midwest bond there.
The financial advisor assured her that her money was safe. She's going to get steady returns, an investment that would carry her through retirement.
Things were humming along just fine for a while. And he would oh, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to do this. Oh, and I've got my parents in it too. Don't you worry. Everything's great and wonderful. Everything's moving along well.
That company was GPB Capital, a private equity firm run by a Long Island accountant named David Gentile. GPB Capital promised investors a steady 8% annual return. It's modest enough to seem credible, but high enough to be attractive. And for a while, it worked. Monthly distributions arrived. Investors like CarolAnn got regular monthly distributions. They arrived like clockwork, and it reassured investors that their money was safe and growing. David Gentile and his company raised nearly $1.8 billion from approximately 17,000 investors all across the United States between the year 2013 and 2018. And it wasn't just CarolAnn. The financial advisor who worked with her wiggled his way into her entire family.
Not only myself, but my younger sister got involved. He got my mother in her 90s involved in money.
How exactly did they get involved?
My younger sister follows what I do. And the financial advisor just went ahead and reeled her in with this. And then when he heard about my mom and her money, oh, well, then I have to talk to her, and I go home to Topeka so I can go visit her in person, and put on a real schmooze show that she invested over $100,000 herself.
Wait, he went to visit her in person?
Yep, sure did.
Wow, that's kind of weird, right?
Well, I'm going home to Topeka, which is only an hour from Kansas City. So I'm going to fly into Kansas City and I'll make sure I see your mom and I'm going to talk to her about this and blah. So she did. She invested $100,000 because it was supposed to have been such a great deal.
So it wasn't like you said, hey, mom, hey, sister, I'm working with this great guy. It was like he was actively trying to find people within your life to get.
Absolutely.
But in the background, the walls were already closing in. By 2019, GPB had stopped filing audited financial statements with the SEC, and civil lawsuits were starting to pile up. CarolAnn didn't see the red flags until it was too late.
The friend who introduced me to him said, you need to get away from him. There are quite a few lawsuits against him. Nothing started showing red flags until we started receiving letter after letter after letter going after this one company and him in particular.
Remember, David Gentile made a simple promise. You get 8% return every year like clockwork. 17,000 people fell for it. CarolAnn Tutera was one of them, and for a while it worked exactly like he promised. But it turned out that this was just another Ponzi scheme. And David Gentile, the man behind the numbers, spent only 12 days in federal prison. 12 days for a $1 billion fraud that destroyed the retirement savings of 17,000 people. This is the story of how that happened. I'm Javier Leyva, and this is Pretend. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform for building your online presence and getting your thing off the ground, whatever that thing is. Okay, so you're a true crime listener, you're curious, you're resourceful, you probably have a whole system for organizing information that most people would find unhinged. And if that's you, then honestly, you're already built for this. Because here's what I keep thinking about. So many of you have something you want to put out in this world, a blog, a side hustle, a business, a brand. And the only thing that's been stopping you is just the website part. Like, where do you even start? That's exactly what Squarespace is for. And it's a lot less complicated than you think. First off, the design side, they have this AI-powered tool called Blueprint AI that basically acts like a design partner. You answer a few questions about what you're building, and it helps you put something that actually looks like you. No coding, no starting from a blank screen. And if you'd rather just start from a template, they've got a whole library of gorgeous ones that you can customize to fit your brand. And then once you've got the site, Squarespace makes it easy to actually run your business from it too. We're talking about built-in scheduling so clients can book you directly. And then once you got the site, Squarespace makes it easy to actually run your business from it too. We're talking about built-in scheduling so clients can book you directly, invoicing, online payments, everything you need to offer your services and get paid without juggling 5 different tools. It's all in there. Go to squarespace.com/pretend for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use promo code PRETEND to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. When it comes to wardrobe, I always thought I had lots of options, but lots of options and nothing to wear. Well, Quince kind of fixed that for me. And yeah, I've had more than a few people ask me where I got something, so here we are. Quince goes direct to top factories and cuts out the middleman. No brand markups, no inflated retail prices, just good clothes. That cashmere is 100% Mongolian, same stuff that the luxury brands charge a fortune for. And the Pima cotton is a long staple and it stays soft and it doesn't pill. The European jersey linen is breathable and lightweight. Everything is built to hold up to regular wear and it still looks pretty good. And they only work with factories that meet serious standards of craftsmanship and ethical production. So it's not just good looking clothes, it's actually made right. Those linen shorts, by the way, have become my go-to and they don't wrinkle up like the cheap linen does. They work with everything. And it didn't cost me a fortune either. So if you have a dude in your house that doesn't know what to wear, tell him to stop overcomplicating his wardrobe. You don't need a closet full of options. You just need a few pieces that actually work. And right now, go to quince.com/pretendpod for free shipping and 365 days returns. That's a full year to build your wardrobe and love it. And you will, I promise. Now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that doesn't last. Go to Quince, QUINCE.com/pretend quince.com/pretendpod, one word, for free shipping and 365-day returns. quince.com/pretendpod. I mean, because nobody says, hey, would you like to invest in this Ponzi scheme? They paint this like fantastic picture. Like, what were they promising you?
Oh, incredible returns. I'm going to see everything back and then some. We're getting these letters from lawyers.
What did you do? Did you say, hey, what is all this about? Or?
Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, you're going to get your money out of it. It's still going to be fine. This is just normal proceedings. Until I found my attorney, Adam Gana.
I've probably represented 250 investors over the course of the last, 7, 8, 9 years now.
Adam Gana had spent more than 20 years going after fraudsters on behalf of investors. GPB Capital is one of the biggest fights of his career.
I do remember the first investor that came to me. It was a 65-year-old retiree who had lost about $150,000, and we just knew that this was going to be a big problem. This GPB Capital investment spanned across a number of investors, probably close to around 17,000 investors, maybe a little more than that. And so it's hit everyone from Silicon Valley to farmers in the middle of Nebraska. But we've represented retirees, farmers. We represented a couple in their late 60s that had spent 35 years working blue-collar jobs. They rolled most of their money into these investments. They were looking for income. They weren't chasing upside in any way and just trying to avoid risk. But it doesn't end there. It's literally everyone. Red states, blue states, rich people, poor people. There are people that lost seven-figure sums of money or invested seven-figure sums of money into GPP.
For David Gentile, it didn't matter who you were or where you came from. He just needed your life savings to keep the illusion going.
So a classic Ponzi scheme is where you take new investor money to pay old investors to make your investment seem great, right? It's a classic Ponzi.
It's a little like robbing Peter to pay Paul, except Peter doesn't know that he's being robbed. He gets a statement every month showing that his money is growing. And that's the whole con. To break down exactly how this scheme worked, I called the one person I know who is genuinely obsessed with Ponzi schemes, a little bit unhealthy if you ask me, my co-host on the Ponzi Playbook podcast, Neal McTighe. You and I have covered a lot of Ponzi schemes on the Ponzi Playbook. I mean, some really wild Ponzi schemes.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, the stories that we're telling are these incredible returns, like 20%, like things that, come
just don't make sense.
It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to get that big of a return. But what makes this Ponzi scheme kind of interesting is how modest it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that modest 8% annual return.
Is that a wild number? Is that a number that flies under the radar?
It somewhat, yeah. Because if you think about it, that's what Bernie Madoff did. He was an 8% return guy. That number kind of sits well within the investment community because 5%, 4%, 3%, there are so many other ways that you can access that sort of return without putting it in a more risky vehicle. So if you bring the percentage just a little above, but not too high, you're still within a comfort zone for most investors. It doesn't seem as risky.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what kind of business were they running? Like, what kind of sales pitch did he tell his investors?
Basically, David Gentile had partners. He was running an accounting firm, and he had this idea for creating an investment fund called GPB. He just saw an opportunity to, raise money and invest that money in businesses, whether that was ownership or equity. So it's nothing crazy.
What kind of businesses were they investing in?
Yeah, this isn't like, like AI and super fancy stuff here. We're going back to 2013. Right. We're talking about like Volkswagen dealerships. We're talking about, your run-of-the-mill sort of like companies like waste management companies, but a lot of them were car dealerships, in fact. He raised a ton of money. I think it was almost to the point where they were going to get to the 2 billion number over the lifetime.
And I mean, it sounds like, a legit investment, and it probably was intended to be a legitimate business, right? But
I would think so.
Only a year into launching GPB Capital, he hits a snag, right? Like what happens in 2014?
You promise these investors that you're going to put the money into cash flow positive, growing businesses, but they weren't actually making money or enough money to pay those 8% returns. So reality hit really quickly. 1 year in, it's like, where are we going to get the money to pay these returns? And there's one obvious place, Javier, and that's you go to the principal, the investor capital itself. And that's what they started doing.
So the right thing to do at this point would be for David Gentile and his company to admit that they lost money to their investors, right? Like that would be the appropriate thing to do. But that's not what they did, right? They decided to cook the books. And did you know that this was a risky investment, or did they sell it to you as they said, hey, you know what? You're getting closer to retirement. We need to be safe with your money and not take unnecessary risks. I mean, did they give you that kind of pitch?
Never. I wouldn't have known otherwise to ask for him, because you put your faith and trust in someone who's playing with your money. Yeah. You don't wake up one day and go, I think I'm getting screwed over. I'm going to look into him. Boy, lo and behold, I sure did.
And this stuff is complicated, right? A lot of people, they have retirement funds, but they don't really know where their money is going, right?
No, they don't. I do now.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself pretty savvy when it comes to investments and stuff like that? Or at the time you just kind of blindly trusted your advisor?
At the time I blindly trusted because I was still grieving my late husband.
Yeah.
So I had no reason not to trust him. There was never any time that he ever said, hey, this is bad. I don't think we should do it.
By the fall of 2015, GPB's own internal records show that the scheme was already unraveling. The CFO, the chief financial officer, put it in writing. Emails sent directly to David Gentile confirming that they had crossed the line. Prosecutors called these documents the smoking gun. Evidence that they knew exactly what they were doing, and they kept doing it for years. When employees started asking questions, GPB shut them down. A senior executive who figured out what was happening was pushed out and forced to sign a hush agreement, one that David Gentile personally signed. Then a whistleblower. In the court documents, they call him employee number 3. This was a key executive running one of GPB's car dealerships. He took his evidence to the board, then a week later, he went directly to the SEC.
So when you have a threat in the house, you might be thinking, just got to get rid of that threat. Let's fire this guy. But the chief compliance officer, that is the one who really is, understands the dealings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. He tells David Gentile, do not fire this guy. This guy is, a threat to us because the SEC could view your firing as illegal retaliation. And you'd think that Gentile would say, yeah, okay, I got you. But he completely ignored the chief compliance officer's recommendation and fired the guy 3 days later.
What my advisor did is a heinous crime, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's criminal, obviously, right?
It is.
How much money did you invest in this company?
It was over $400,000. You'd give your money, and I think it was nothing but one big Ponzi scheme. You keep putting it in, you start seeing a little bit come out, and then all of a sudden it all drains and goes away.
Yeah. And I mean, we all, if we're lucky, right, we get a chance to put something away, right, so that we could enjoy it later on in life. What were you planning on doing with all that money?
Well, considering COVID really screwed up everything for us, everything costs more. I'm downsized a lot into a smaller home. I'm still working at my own company, but even so, I think about retiring and go, I'm going to have to make that up somewhere. It's a big chunk of change.
In February of 2021, the Justice Department finally moved. Armed with years of whistleblower evidence, the FBI and the SEC officially charged David Gentile and his inner circle with running a $1.7 billion fraud. That's almost $2 billion, guys. The case was an 8-week federal jury trial. Jeffrey Lash, one of David Gentile's co-conspirators, had already pled guilty to wire fraud, but not David Gentile. He hired a high-powered Miami defense attorney named Matthew Menschel. Here's an interesting side note about David Gentile's defense attorney, Matthew Menschel. Before Matthew Menschel was defending accused fraudsters, he was prosecuting them as a U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida. And it was in that role that he helped negotiate one of the most infamous sweetheart deals in American legal history. The 2007 agreement that let Jeffrey Epstein walk away with what could have been a 60-count federal sex trafficking indictment. Instead, Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 state-level prostitution charges and served only 13 months in county jail. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When the Epstein files came out, Matthew Menschel's name kept showing up over and over again. Appointments with Jeffrey Epstein, phone calls with Jeffrey Epstein, dinners with Jeffrey Epstein. U.S. lawmakers even referenced a photograph of the two of them on a ski trip together, though that photo was never produced. Of course, Matthew Menschel denies having any business relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Because how many criminal defendants do you know who are just hanging out with the prosecutor who tried them? Anyway, back to David Gentile. The indictment described more than 10,000 victims. The judge who sentenced David Gentile said that she received hundreds of letters from people whose lives had been upended. Retirees, veterans, teachers, people who had spent decades saving and lost it all in a matter of years. The jury deliberated. It took them less than 5 hours, and they found him guilty on all counts. In May of 2025, David Gentile was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. His partner, Jeffrey Schneider, got 6 years. But when you heard that the jury took 5 hours and found him guilty, at that moment, when he was found guilty, what were you thinking?
Justice was served. There's no doubt about it. And the fact that they did it in such a short amount of time proves that he did the wrong thing. And there's no doubt about that he manipulated this whole scheme of getting money out of people.
Just 12 days after that, President Trump issued an executive grant of clemency, commuting Gentile's sentence. I mean, it completely wiped away his legal requirement to pay restitution to the people that he defrauded. And while it doesn't erase like a pardon, the convictions on his record, but what the heck does he care? He's out 12 days later.
And then when he was exonerated, you got to be kidding me. I just, look, even Martha Stewart spent time in prison. He could at least do the same amount of time.
When reporters asked the White House to explain this commutation, here's what the press secretary had to say.
Why did the president commute the sentence of David Gentile recently? He was a private equity executive. He served 12 days out of a 7-year sentence. The prosecutor said he defrauded $1.6 billion with thousands of victims, including veterans, farmers, teachers. Why was he pardoned?
With respect to that pardon, he issued a commutation for Mr. Gentile, who's the former CEO and co-founder of GPB Capital Holdings. Unlike similar companies, GBP paid regular annualized distributions to its investors. In 2015, GBP disclosed to investors the possibility of using investor capital to pay some of these distributions rather than funding them from current operations. Even though this was disclosed to investors, the Biden Department of Justice claimed it was a Ponzi scheme. This claim was profoundly undercut by the fact that GBP had explicitly told investors what would happen. At trial, the government was unable to tie any supposedly fraudulent representations to Mr. Gentile. In short, again, this is another example that has been brought to the president's attention of a weaponization of justice from the previous administration, and therefore he signed this commutation.
So say that these people were defrauded.
I just read you a very detailed summary of why the commutation was made.
this guy got out of jail, got a free card after 2 weeks with over $1 billion, I understand, to go home to his wife and his 2 kids because that was important to somebody in the White House. I'm sorry. I'm here by myself, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath of this guy who's playing golf probably at his country club and private jetting around the world with his family. So something is wrong with that picture.
Something is wrong with that picture.
Now, the only way he can get out of jail card free is that you pay somebody off. You know somebody who knows somebody who I understand he knew somebody from Mar-a-Lago, which got to our person in the White House, and it kind of worked its way up, and he was able to write a nice hefty check, and he was out of jail. Come on.
There's no official, publicly available visitor log from Mar-a-Lago. The Secret Service and the Department of Justice have stated that they don't maintain a formal tracking system for the president's private club the way they do for the White House. In 2020, a federal appeals court ruled that those records are presidential records, and they are exempt from any Freedom of Information Act. Now you might be asking yourself, but presidents have to disclose political donations, and that's true, but they are generally not required to disclose who pays for their private club membership, their cryptocurrency, or dinners at their own properties. But the question is, shouldn't the public deserve to know who holds influence over the president and his staff?
That pardon was surreal. And the reason it was surreal is because it also wiped out all the restitution he was ordered to pay the defrauded investors, which was over $15 million. His partner, however, continues to remain in prison and be subject to a restitution order. So the real question that everyone should be asking is why the difference?
Yeah. Why is the difference? What's your opinion?
I really couldn't tell you why. I don't know. And I've been interviewed about this by the New York Times and The Guardian and a host of other people. And I tell them, I put it back on them. You tell me why.
That's a big question. Why Gentile and not the others?
What kind of message is this sending white-collar criminals and Ponzi schemers? Like you said, God knows how many Ponzi schemes are happening right now. But like, what does this say to those criminals?
I mean, it seems like he's praising them. He's giving them a pathway. He's saying that the justice system is not going after you. So let's make a prediction that in 6 years from now, we will see a massive number of failed Ponzi schemes because they will have begun at this period. Because why not?
Yeah, they were given the green light.
You were given the green light. White collar crime is difficult to convict on, but its impact is often completely devastating and sometimes to the tune of wrecking thousands of people's lives. But it's just business for Trump and these folks.
The good news is that the civil case is still alive. A federal judge approved releasing over $400 million to some of the defrauded investors through a receivership process. But for CarolAnn and the other investors, the road to recovery is going to be long. The criminal restitution order, that $15 million, was wiped out the moment that President Trump signed that clemency grant.
I'm like a dog with a bone. I will see this to the bitter end.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of money. And out of that $400,000, did you ever see any of that money back?
40 or 60,000. I don't remember the exact number.
And when did you want to retire? Like, what was the original plan?
I'd love to retire now. Believe it or not.
If you don't mind me asking, I know you're not supposed to ask a woman this, but like, I won't put it on the podcast. But just, how old are you?
You can put this on the podcast because nobody believes I'm 70 years old.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. And at this point, you should have been retired, right?
Right. I mean, all my friends from I would say 98% of my friends from high school, they're all retired. Mm-hmm. I'm still working.
It just doesn't make sense. The Trump White House is saying that this was a political persecution, yet it was a Trump appointee named Joseph Nocella, who was a U.S. attorney appointed by Trump, was the one that secured the conviction and called it a great success.
And he said that this was an incredible fraud, that this goes to show crime doesn't pay. He was excited about the conviction. And this is a Trump-appointed U.S. interim attorney. Here's the worst part for you, Javier. You've got a situation now. It's one thing to commute the criminal sentence, right? But here's the rub of it. He had a $15 million restitution order. That's money that investors aren't getting back. He has spent tens of millions of dollars defending himself against both this criminal action and civil actions. If this was going to be a commutable sentence, why not do it before the investors were responsible for footing the bill for both his defense criminally and now not getting the restitution money back? Now tens of millions of dollars.
So it's like a double whammy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that is tough. In August 2025, an executive order opened the door to put, quote, alternative investments, which are complex private investments like the ones that GPB Capital did, into American 401k retirement accounts. The order was called, quote, democratizing access to alternative assets, unquote. And for people who lost everything with GPB, that's a terrifying idea. It encourages putting risky alternative investments into people's retirement accounts.
So I'll say this. Alternative investments are not always improper. I would never buy one myself. I would never have my grandmother buy one, but they're not always improper. They can serve a small purpose of a small portion of a portfolio, right? To me, that's the biggest problem. And here, when you try to move those types of complex, opaque products into things like 401k plans where people, or your average retiree knows very little about the underlying investment, you want to try to keep it simple. This is not keeping it simple. And this is a real problem for investors. It's something that I've gone to the Hill myself to try to lobby against because I think it's going to be horrific for retail investors and amazing for my business.
Right, which your business is to protect, to defend the victims of these
correct
potential crimes, right? And
but
so, yeah,
I see how bad it's going to be for investors.
What message is the administration trying to send here?
Well, if you have enough money, you can buy your way out of jail. It's really clear to me. It's obscene that happens in today's world, that you are paid off. But, look, that's how Washington runs. Everybody's paid off in Washington.
CarolAnn's suspicion that money bought David Gentile's freedom isn't just speculation. I mean, there's a case out there that makes this pattern a little hard to ignore. In early 2025, a wealthy Florida nursing home developer named Elizabeth Fago attended an exclusive fundraising dinner at Mar-a-Lago. The entry fee was reported to be $1 million a plate, promising donors intimate, direct access to the president. Less than 3 weeks later, President Trump granted a full and unconditional pardon to her son, Paul Walczak. Walczak was a former nursing home executive who had been convicted of withholding over $7 million in payroll taxes from his own employees. Money he used to fund a lavish lifestyle, including a $2 million yacht, and he had just been sentenced to 18 months in prison and ordered to pay back $4.4 million in restitution. All of it wiped out. Ethics watchdogs noted that Walczak's pardon application had explicitly highlighted his mother's political loyalty and financial support. The timeline, $1 million dinner, pardon 3 weeks later, drew a little intense scrutiny, don't you think? The timeline, the $1 million dinner, coincidence? And then what's even more confusing about this case, because of all the cases that I've been looking at, there have been very clear connections to the Trump administration, either personal connections, through the Kushner family or whatever, or they have no connections at all and hire an attorney that has worked with the Trump with Trump, and they get access that way. Another way you get access is buying a fancy dinner at Mar-a-Lago. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yes.
different ways, but I cannot find any connection to David Gentile and Trump.
That is really strange. I was thinking about, when you kind of proposed that you were looking at this whole general trend that we're seeing in these commutations, and you're kind of looking at the effects that they're having. I was wondering about, like, well, why the heck would President Trump want to commute the sentences or pardon so many convicted white collar criminals? I mean, this looks like it was just a terrible business.
It's only a Ponzi scheme, Neal, if you get caught.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes you wonder how many of these are going on right now all over the place. I mean, it's all of these sort of private deals where you hand over cash into some private entity and becomes this black box. And then you're sort of faced with these people who are dealing with money all day, who are living in, these lavish worlds where they have access to high net worth people. They want to play the part, play the game. So what do? You just say, I'm going to take a little bit from there and I'll be able to fill that back in later. And that's what they were effectively doing, and just hoping that at some point that this would all fix itself.
Ponzi schemers are eternal optimists.
They're eternal optimists. I've never thought of them that way, but I do believe you're right.
On March 7, 2025, the Trump administration fired Liz Oyer, the head of the Office of Pardon Attorney. In her place, the president installed a political loyalist named Ed Martin, who reportedly described his new mandate as, quote, no MAGA left behind. I'm just bringing all of this up because it is hard to ignore.
Right now, the SEC has been gutted. FINRA has lost 20+% of its staff, I believe, in the last year or two. And so there's this huge push to reduce the number of people responsible for the enforcement actions associated with bringing these types of people to justice. And we need more enforcement, more regulatory action, and more changes in the law that protect investors from these types of investments, not the other way around, putting them more of these investments into 401k plan.
So you just painted a really, really scary picture, right? SEC has been gutted, right? So like there's less people potentially prosecuting these crimes. There's riskier investments going into people's retirements. Yep. And then some of the worst offenders end up getting pardoned, right? It's like this like perfect storm of fraud.
It's frustrating.
Oh, man.
Unfortunate.
There's never been a better time to be a con artist, right? Get away with it.
You're not kidding. At first, I thought he was great, but now I look at him as a big joke. So, yeah, I'm not happy what's going on up there.
This is not a political thing, right?
No, this is not political at all. Yeah. I don't care, who he voted for. It's the fact that you stole money. You knew you were stealing money. You come out with all your money and you leave everybody behind with no money. So doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And I mean, this seems kind of silly to ask you, but like if you were to look David Gentile in the eye right now, or if he were listening to this, like what would you tell him?
It's not so much what I would tell him, but I would ask him why. Why? What kind of conscience do you have to be able to put out this product, to have financial advisors sell on your behalf? How do you sleep at night? How do you look your wife and your kids in the face knowing that you manipulated and took so much money from so many people? How do you live day to day? I honestly don't know.
I hope you're enjoying this series. There's more to come. Next time on Pretend, we are going down to the Baja Peninsula, where one white-collar offender is making huge profit margins producing counterfeit products. It's an epic investigation, caper. Our next pardon is double the action, double the pardons.
Lululemon knows the 2 times you'll love your everyday pants the most are when they're brand new and when they're broken in. Lululemon's new Easy 5 pants are designed to let you enjoy both feelings at the very same time. Because Easy 5 is the brand new pant that delivers a broken-in feel from day one. Engineered with the structure you want and the touch of stretch you need. Easy 5 casually outperforms denim. Shop now, in-store or online. Athletic innovation for everyday life. Lululemon.
So Neal, you predict that in a few years, we're going to have an explosion of Ponzi schemes, which is really good news for us, right? Because we we have a podcast about Ponzi schemes. So
right.
Neal, we've taken a break from Ponzi's playbook, and we've said that we were going to come back, and then life got busy again. When are we going to start recording new episodes?
Well, I would love to start. Just being here with you today is like sexy. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this guy Javier. You all know his voice, right?
Oh,
so
no.
I get to talk with him.
No, we need to do this because my mom really likes your voice. She tells me all the time, "Oh, Neal has such an amazing
hello,
voice."
Javier's mom.
So we got to do this, man. We got to get the band back together.
We got to bring it back.
So for those of you who have not listened to the Ponzi Playbook, it's a podcast where Neal and I just talk about Ponzi schemes, just like this one. If you haven't listened, go check it out. We will start recording new episodes because things are settling down. And
in fact, we've already recorded a number of them because we just like talking with each other.
Yeah, we've recorded a
bunch
bunch
of
of
archives.
They're just waiting to be released.
Maybe we can release them when their sentences are commuted.
That's right.
You know,
we could have a little, to celebrate their commutation.
Yes, we could just, do a quick wrap up. And what do all these folks have in common? Their sentences were commuted.
Oh man, that's terrible. I mean, we're making fun of it, but it's.
We're making fun, but I know everybody understands that we're pointing it out.
Yeah. All right, Neal. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on the show. It's good to record with you again.
Absolutely.
But Neal, whatever you do,
commit a Ponzi scheme because you'll be commuted.